Hi, I'm Tiliakos, Principal Analyst and co-founder of GXT Advisors. My career in HR and payroll began on Parris Island, South Carolina, where I was assigned to one of the first shared service organizations in the United States Marine Corps. It was in that role, maintaining and certifying service records for permanent personnel, that I learned the importance of HR data quality and the value of functionally aligned, consolidated back office processing. That experience gave me the foundation to launch a 30-year career in HR and payroll transformation, and I've been fortunate to learn and accomplish so much along the way. After the Marines, I spent 6 years with what was then the largest PEO provider in the United States, where I learned HR and payroll at scale, supporting a wide range of emerging businesses. This ultimately led to my joining the Walt Disney Company as a payroll leader for their newly formed shared service center in Celebration, Florida. I've also had the privilege of working for some of the largest payroll and HR services and technology firms in the industry, including ADP, TCS, Alight, and IBM. It was in this time that I began consulting and working with global Fortune 1000 organizations seeking HR and payroll transformation, and I began refining my professional passion. As the HR technology and services research director for a major analyst firm, I discovered a love for market research. In addition to my research on the future of payroll, I also launched the firm's first report on HCM technology platforms and the industry's first market analysis report dedicated to the emerging global employer of record service model. I've been honored to take on prominent positions throughout my career, but I am even prouder to have pursued my passion and launched my own analyst and advisory firm where my unique experience and practitioner perspective can make a wider impact on the future of the marketplace. A day in the life of an industry analyst is hectic and requires a lot of coordination and time management. When I don't have early calls, I start with a morning workout and then review my to-do list to set objectives for the day. All of my work is founded in providing the industry with timely insights, but my day-to-day activities vary greatly along the different avenues by which I gather and share that information. I stay informed through ongoing advisory work and research, briefing with vendors on their emerging market solutions, conducting buyer surveys, reviewing content from the APA and GPMI, now Payroll.org, and tracking developments with major providers through press releases and financial disclosures. This knowledge is essential, but it's not the only reason I'm trusted as a strategic advisor by the top brands in the HCM marketplace. My clients know I'm not just a scholar who's read about the industry. I've walked a mile in the shoes of the practitioner, and I believe it makes all the difference in the unique expertise and perspective I'm able to provide. By building a trusted advisor relationship, I strive to deliver high value and long-term impact by helping vendors advance their offerings, grow their brands, and reach potential customers with impactful content. Something of great importance to me, however, is reaching an audience beyond just my advisory clients. I'm passionate about elevating the payroll industry, practice, and profession, and I've been privileged to contribute my knowledge to that end by maintaining a presence as a thought leader. This means my schedule also includes regular engagement on LinkedIn and Twitter, traveling for vendor conferences and analyst events, writing articles, or preparing for upcoming speaking engagements and recording episodes of the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast. Paying it forward has always been important to me, so when I'm not sharing my knowledge with the market, I also help veterans and their spouses navigate career transitions as a volunteer for Hire Heroes USA. Sometimes it's the opportunities with no anticipated ROI that end up making the biggest impact on your life. My advice to anyone who wants to be successful is keep an open mind on what success looks like. I spent much of my career thinking payroll would hold me back in pursuing a more strategic HR path, and yet each time I tried to inch away, payroll would pull me back with bigger, more rewarding opportunities that only elevated my career. My role may be different from that of a typical practitioner or manager, but my passion is the same, and I know I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Ever since I was a little boy, I've wanted to travel the world. So as a young man, I thought, why not join the United States Marine Corps? The Marines certainly travel the world. Well, fast forward a year through boot camp, Marine combat training, and administrative school, I found myself stationed aboard the legendary Parris Island, South Carolina, the very place where I had just spent 16 miserable weeks in boot camp becoming a Marine. Parris Island is a historic and critical base, and with a single mission and focus of making Marines and supplying the Fleet Marine Force with newly trained talent. An important base with a critical mission. However, Marines stationed aboard Parris Island are what the Marine Corps would deem non-deployable, which means Marines stationed aboard the island do not travel. Well, I was devastated to learn this. As you can imagine, this was not the Marine Corps experience I had signed up for. Where was the adventure? Where was the world travel? Looking back, I admit I thought this was the end of the world. But little did I know, my time on Paris Island would lay the groundwork for a 30-year career, an adventure that has taken me to more than 15 countries, and the story is still taking shape today. So I checked into my due duty station, and on my first day was assigned to the Depot Consolidated Administration Center, which coincided with the launch of the first shared service center in the United States Marine Corps history. At that time, I had no idea what a shared service center was or why it mattered to anyone, especially me. But for the next 3 years, I audited pay and entitlement records for permanent personnel stationed aboard Paris Island. And very early in my career, I learned the value and impact of shared service centers and the importance of high-quality HR and payroll data. But not experiencing the travel and adventures I had hoped for and expected, I felt jaded and believed I had missed out on the true Marine Corps experience. Without a clue as to what my next chapter would be, after 4 years, I left the Marines and I headed back home to Florida. As luck would have it, the city that I was living in was also home to what was then the largest PEO, professional employer organization in the United States, which would eventually become what is now TriNet. And for the next 6 years, I delivered and managed HR and payroll at scale for hundreds of small businesses across the southeastern United States and worked my way up to regional manager. There, I led a team of practitioners who supported the firm's clients across the southeastern U.S. During that time, I learned what good HR and payroll were and the ROI it enables for the businesses it supports. And by then, I was ready for a new challenge and wanted to test myself in the best practices I had learned. By now, I'd seen a few major cities in the U.S., and I looked for an opportunity to feed my appetite for travel. So I casually began my job search. And one evening, on Monster.com, a posting on Monster.com spoke to me. The Walt Disney Company was looking for a payroll manager in their back office operations located near Orlando, Florida. And the leadership role would be in the newly formed Disney Worldwide Shared Service Center. Well, this was the challenge I wanted, and I had every skill for the job required. Even though I believed that there was zero chance of getting a call back, I began to visualize traveling to Disney business units across the country. This would be an amazing opportunity for both my career and my young family. Well, within a few weeks, I was in Orlando for an overnight stay at the Walt Disney World Resort for an interview with the director of payroll for the new center, Bob Mazza. You can imagine my excitement when Bob said, "Pete, your experience is perfect to help us build the center's future model, but there's a fair amount of travel required of this role. Is that okay with you?" And of course it was. But my exciting new position also came with a significant challenge. It required leading payroll operations for the entire ABC television network, its owned radio and TV stations across the United States, and its entire media production businesses. I was tasked to lead a project team that would accompany me to New York City, where we would spend nearly a year documenting, learning, and moving an incredibly complicated and highly scrutinized television, radio, and media production payroll from a stable tenured team of practitioners with decades-old payroll processes, all operating on a patchwork of mainframe legacy systems, to the new Disney Worldwide Shared Service Center in Celebration, Florida. We would then staff, manage, and operate the payroll and later shift to a new modern technology platform. Well, I was on top of the world. This was the opportunity I had been looking for, and it included the type of challenge and travel I was craving. So a month after my interview, I'm in my new role planning the major undertaking with other shared services leaders. Within 1 week of preparing for the launch of the project, the events of September 11 happened. And the company immediately cut our project staffing and budget in half, making this almost mission impossible. If this project wasn't difficult enough, it instantly became significantly more complicated. What was a 12-month project became 6 months with half the resources. Well, right away, I got to work and selected a small tiger team of skilled practitioners, and we headed to the Big Apple. And for the next 6 months, we lived in New York City, documenting, learning, and preparing to replicate one of the most complex and fragile payroll operations on the planet. We returned to Florida, and after training the new team I had staffed throughout the project and multiple successful parallel runs, we cut over to the new ABC TV payroll team in Florida, and we managed the network's payroll operations from then on. Not only did we complete the project on time and within budget, in the first year, we exceeded our expectations. We met all of our key performance indicators and steadily reduced our headcount requirements by 30%. This allowed us to shift valuable resources to support other processes and new inbound work without increasing the center's overall headcount. And despite the obstacles, our leadership considered this a massive success. From there, I went on to manage payroll operations and stakeholder relations for 7 of the then 13 business units, the Disney business units. They included the Walt Disney Company corporate offices, the Disney Consumer Products, Disney Imagineering, the Disney Internet Group, the Disney Cruise Lines, ESPN, and the Walt Disney World Resort, which to this day remains the largest single-site employer in the United States of America. By every measure, I was excelling as a payroll leader. Working for Disney not only provided me with tremendous experience, it also provided me with many opportunities for advancing my payroll career. Seeking more challenge, I looked to broaden my HR expertise and advance as a strategic HR leader. Eventually, a path became apparent to me that I hadn't considered. One that would allow me to leverage my deep payroll experience while learning and experiencing other areas of human capital management while diversifying my background. Well, my next chapter led me back to the world I understood very well, the HR outsourcing marketplace. And for the next 7 years, I held leadership roles for some of the world's largest HR outsourcing providers. This time, helping large, complex multinational firms, just like Disney, navigate their own HR and payroll transformation journeys. I was fortunate to work with and learn from some of the largest employers and top brands in the world. As part of my job responsibilities, I traveled to many amazing countries, including the Netherlands, Argentina, and the Philippines. At last, I was seeing the world. But admittedly, during this time, I floundered slightly because I kept thinking I needed to distance myself from payroll. You see, on reflection, opportunities always came to me because of payroll. And despite my resistance, it was payroll that opened the doors to new paths. It was payroll that took me to the new levels. And it was payroll that was providing more travel opportunity. Well, after 7 years in HR outsourcing, payroll yet again delivered. This time, an opportunity to join the largest human capital management consultancy firm in the world, Deloitte Consulting. I proudly accepted my role as the payroll guy working for Big Four Consulting. Can you imagine the thrill to guide Fortune 500 organizations on their HR transformation journeys? And yes, I was living the dream. Every Monday and Thursday, I was on another plane, traveling. And my travels took me across the US to cities of every size. And I saw amazing views of my client's boardroom, my hotel room, and of course, the airport. Despite my passion for the work, guess what? The travel burned me out, and I was no longer having fun or enjoying myself. By now, my experience had expanded, and I knew there was more, and I was open to exploring new challenges. Well, armed with an updated resume, LinkedIn provided the opportunity that would turn the page to the next chapter. A London-based analyst firm that I was familiar with posted, "We're seeking an industry analyst to join our HR services research team. The applicant must have deep HR outsourcing experience, and payroll is the key focus area." Well, just like Disney, I knew I was the perfect fit. After all, Deloitte was a subscriber, and as a consultant, I leveraged the firm's research to help support recommendations to my clients. I knew the product well, and I understood the value of quality market research. I was excited that it included amazing opportunities to travel for vendor and industry events, just like this one, in locations around the world. The only problem was, I had no clue what an industry analyst was or what they were expected to do. You see, the job required that I research, write, speak about, and cover the global marketplace for payroll solutions. And then I read that the key requirement was to become the leading subject matter expert in the payroll services marketplace. Well, naturally, I was intrigued. I knew I had plenty to offer this role, and I'm sure you would agree. Based on my experience, by now, I knew this industry top to bottom. As a practitioner, I used these solutions. As a consultant, I had guided top companies around the world to select and deploy them. More important, I had worked for many of the solution providers in the market I'd be responsible for researching. It felt like I had found the next chapter. And before I knew it, I was meeting with the firm's founder and the director of HR research. They told me, "We love your experience, and we know you're a perfect fit for this role." Well, full of enthusiasm, I accepted my new challenge and immediately embraced my first project. But as I'm amongst friends, I have to admit, I felt intimidated and overwhelmed by the role. You see, the expectations were that I had to keep the pulse on the entire marketplace of vendors, produce regular blogs and thought leadership content, balance a social media presence, write lengthy market analysis reports with firm deadlines, at the same time travel for vendor events, all while discovering my voice, my style, and developing my own brand as a thought leader. It was the ultimate test in time management and a massive learning curve. At first, I felt incredibly unsure of myself. At vendor events, I was in the same room as legendary HR technology analysts. Just weeks before, I was following and looking up to them. As you can imagine, at first, I didn't think I belonged. Perhaps you've heard of imposter syndrome. That was me. Why would anyone care about the point of view of a payroll guy amongst all these HR marketplace giants? But then I embraced my payroll expertise instead of trying to run from it. For the very first time in my career, I leaned in and embraced it. And you know what I discovered? There are many people around the world who care about my perspectives and insights. And slowly I grew an audience, and one blog led to the next, and one report followed the other. And before I knew it, I was advising every vendor that mattered in the payroll marketplace. Some were firms I had worked for. Some had turned me down along my journey. Now they were all taking my advice and subscribing to my research. This led to the realization that I am passionate about payroll. Even more importantly, I'm passionate about making payroll great for every human. From there, I was invited to lead the HR Services and Technology Research program as Director of Research. I launched the firm's first HCM Technology Report and Research program, and in 2020, I authored the first ever market analysis and research program dedicated to the global employer of record services marketplace. But what I'm most proud of is hearing executives across the marketplace tell me I'm the leading voice for the payroll industry and profession. I'm also proud to say that after 7 years as an industry analyst, I knew my next move had to be forming my own analyst and advisory firm. Earlier this year, alongside my good friend, partner, and mentor, Steve Goldberg, GXT Advisors was formed. Looking back on my exciting career, it's ironic that the very skill that I tried to distance myself from is the single skill that consistently elevated my career. And perhaps you'll agree, in today's marketplace, payroll is extremely important. I've enjoyed an amazing, rewarding adventure that moves me from chapter to chapter, and I owe it all to payroll.